So then before I filmed Survivor, that's when I was like, okay, I'm quitting this job. And no matter what, even if I'm the first person voted out of the show, I'll figure something out.
And welcome back to the Sleepless Pod, a podcast about the creative process. We're back with myself, Tom, Robin, and our guest, Erika. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So I feel like over the years you've done a few things. You have your own podcast now. Happy to See Me, Survivor, Canada's Canadian Traders. Mm-hmm. Is that right? And then you also were in PR as well?
Yes, I was in PR and marketing and tech for 10 years before I did all of that.
Okay, so explain to us a bit, how did you get into that first, and then how did everything trickle after that?
Okay, so getting into PR, marketing, and tech, I got into it because I had no idea what I was doing, and I was like, let me do this thing.
Right.
So I was actually unsurprised. Probably this won't be a surprise to either of you. Big high achiever when I was in school. Had to be the president of every club, had to do all of the things. And then when it came time to graduate and everyone's asking each other, what are you doing after graduation? Mm-hmm. I was like, oh no, I hate not knowing. I hate not having it together because I always have it together.
Right.
So I knew that people from my program went and studied public relations. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go to this school and I'm going to study public relations. And I fully signed up for another school, got another tuition, got another student loan, and I had no idea what public relations was. I was like, okay, great. Wow. This is just a thing I should do, and I'm going to do it. So I started studying it. I was like, okay, this is okay. I'm good at it. And then I got a job, and then I would get promoted, and I would get other jobs and get promoted. And all of a sudden, I was doing it for 10 years, and I was like, how have I been doing this for this long when the whole time I always thought this was just going to be a temporary stop. So I knew how to answer the question, what are you going to do after you graduate? And all of a sudden I'm in my 30s and doing this job.
Right.
So I was fortunate that during the pandemic, I got the chance to really take a moment like everybody else and realize, okay, that was a good journey, learned a lot, got some good skills, but we don't have to do things just for the sake of doing them. Now we can actually figure out what we want to do.
Yeah, I feel like that's just, it's amazing that you had that moment of actually, what am I doing here? Because so many people can just get caught being like, okay, this is my life now.
Yeah.
And then, they get to 40 and this is when you have a midlife crisis because time just moves so quickly and you didn't stop to go, wait, I should have. And then you have regret and all these things and you end up buying a Ferrari or doing something crazy. But yeah, midlife crisis, if you can avoid it, I think, yeah. And so then during the pandemic, you kind of reflected, decided, okay, maybe PR isn't for you. And then was that next jump, the Survivor, or going into Survivor, or was it something else to get to that point?
So I actually applied for Survivor as soon as Canadians were eligible for the first time. So that was in 2018. And the casting process is so long. So even though I only applied once and I got cast on the show for the first time, I was told in 2020 that I would be on the show and that we would film the show in March 2020.
Right.
So now we know for obvious reasons I did not film the show Survivor in March 2020.
Right.
And the thing is, if I had filmed Survivor in March 2020, I actually had already made the arrangements at the job that I had at the time that I was just going to take a leave of absence and I was going to come back and then just go back to normal. So when the pandemic hit and I was not filming Survivor and I was just at home, I was like, okay, what do I do? And I'm also someone who normally has a lot of energy and must always be doing things. So something I always wanted to try but never got around to it was actually studying comedy. Oh. So I did all of these improv classes online over Zoom. I did comedy writing. I was taking stand-up over Zoom just for things to do. And I realized that all of the skills that I learned in PR about telling stories, I could actually apply them to stories I wanted to tell.
Right.
And I didn't just have to tell stories that were about meeting the company's bottom line or anything. So I think that taking those classes made me see that there's actually another way to do things. And in the classes, I met people who are now some of my best friends who are also women, same age, in their 30s. We were probably having early midlife crises because everybody either lost their job from the pandemic or were leaving the job that they had been studying for since they were in school and were doing for 10 years. And we were all like, what if we stopped doing these things and we started working in entertainment?
Yeah.
And I think we all around the same time were like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to support each other. We're going to do this. And then Survivor called me. So they called me to film in 2021. And then that's when I had to stop and say, okay, am I going to now go on a leave of absence and film the show and then come back to this job? And I was like, definitely not. There's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm doing that. So then before I filmed Survivor, that's when I was like, okay, I'm quitting this job. And no matter what, even if I'm the first person voted out of the show, I'll figure something out.
Right.
And then I was fortunate that I wasn't the first one voted out. So that helped me out a lot. But yeah.
It's so interesting that you mentioned that, the skills that you learned in the past. My aunt said this thing to me and it was so meta when I was much younger and it stuck with me ever since, that basically everything you do will lead up to the thing you're doing now.
Yes.
And
That's
you don't
true.
realize it until like you're in the thick of it. And you're like, oh, that thing that happened like 5 years ago was actually really beneficial for me, even though it might have been good or bad or whatever. But yeah, no, that's amazing that like you kind of took that leap. And then also, I didn't realize Canadians weren't eligible for something like that.
Yeah.
Is that like a normal thing with reality TV shows that they just put Americans first and then Canadians after?
So this was always an American show, right?
Okay.
So I watched the show since I was a kid and I thought, okay, it's an American show. Obviously, Canadians aren't eligible to be on the show. So my whole life, I told people like, one day I'm going to be on Survivor and I'm going to win.
Wow.
And I said this to literally everybody I knew for 20 years. But my vision was always one day the Canadian TV industry is going to have enough money that they will have their version of a Canadian Survivor. And I'm going to go on the Canadian Survivor and win like the $20,000, whatever, like $2,000 Canadian. And I'll still be a Survivor champion. I never expected that the American version, the one I grew up watching with the host and everything, I never expected that one would open up to Canadians. So I think that also taught me that the world is bigger and what we can achieve and what we can dream of is actually a lot bigger than we think is possible.
Yeah. So would you be a proponent of, I suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you can like envisage what's going to happen? Like,
Manifesting?
Yeah, that's the word
Yes,
I'm
I'm
looking
a huge manifesting girly.
Okay.
Wait, are you manifestors?
I'm coming around to the idea.
Yeah.
I suppose I wouldn't actively. Over the years, I probably have thought about it here and there, but I wouldn't say I'm like diehard manifest. But like, what about yourself, Roman?
Yeah, I think well, first of all, I'm a big believer in your subconscious being able to like work on things in the background, and the more you set to something, your subconscious will go about like kind of making things. But I think where people can get lost in it is they feel like, oh well, I've manifested, so it's definitely going to happen.
Right.
I think life has a way of maybe it's not the thing you want or need. Like if you asked me in high school, or as we called it in secondary school, like I would have said, yeah, I'm going to be a really good rugby player. That's going to be my thing. And that didn't happen. So, and life has had a way of kind of getting in the way of different forms of rugby throughout my thing.
Through your two shoulders.
Yeah, both my shoulders. But yeah, I think I do believe that there is a level of manifesting, but I just worry for people that they sometimes think that, oh, I just have to believe and it's going to come true.
Yeah. I mean, I love manifesting. I've had many manifestation coaches on my podcast, and I'm definitely the person who's like, yeah, it's going to happen at some point. But I do work really hard, and I do leave room for things to surprise me, right? Like if I had decided I'm going to win Canadian Survivor and be so focused on that single vision, I wouldn't leave room for it to be even better and for me to be on the American version and play with the host that I had watched since I was a kid. So I think that I have a vision for what I want to do, how I want to feel, but I'm not like exact stickler. It has to be exactly this way, and then I'm going to sit back and then just let it fall into place. I'm always in motion doing things, but I believe that everything I want to do is going to happen.
Okay.
But I'm also like extremely optimistic, so that might be why.
That helps. Yeah,
That's good.
that
Yeah, I
helps.
mean, Tom and I were just discussing the other day. Tom's very optimistic. I'd like to say I'm leaning on the pessimistic.
Yeah, like where are you on
realistic.
the scale?
Yeah.
Optimism to pessimism. Where are both of you?
Well, I suppose that's where we're talking. We're kind of both on the opposite ends.
Oh.
Yeah.
And being in business together, it kind of works out good because
Yeah.
we see it from both sides, and then we kind of like meet in the middle somewhere most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
time.
Sometimes it's just, okay, I trust your decision. We're
Yeah.
just going to go down this route.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely am I would say a prepper in a sense. Like I would always look around the corner to say like, okay, what could go wrong here? What are those kind of things that we need to do to make sure that these things don't go wrong in the future? So I think that kind of not holds me back, but keeps me from going, yeah, everything's going to be perfect.
Well, everything's not going to
Yeah.
be perfect,
Yeah.
but I think everything will happen the way it's
Yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And then I
So-
think risk comes into it then as well. I think
Yeah.
your openness.
The
risk.
amount of risk you're willing to take on.
Exactly.
Are you not risky?
I'm risk averse. Oh, I would say I'm moderate to risky.
Yeah, and then I'd be more into taking more risks.
Okay, yeah. So you're like the
sort of-
happy one who's like, everything's gonna be amazing. I'm gonna jump off the cliff.
Exactly, let's do it. Yeah.
Well, if it wasn't for Tom, I probably wouldn't be doing Sleepless Studios either. So
Oh.
yeah,
So this is it. But I think it's been a nice balance between the two of us, I think. And then we sort of come together, and because then we sort of keep each other in check then at the same time as well. So yeah, I think it's worked out so far, yeah.
Is Sleepless Studios the first business venture each of you have done?
Business venture, yes. We've done a couple of things in like university together. Like we were both part of the DJing society in the university we went to, and we were both part of like the what do they call it, Robin? The committee.
yeah.
Isn't that
So
it?
it was like a committee of when we took it over. It was like this really niche kind of like society that was kind of just like on the peripheries of, and then we really over the years got it on its feet, and it's turned into something really incredible now. But yeah, so we just kind of saw that and said, you know, people need an easy way to be creative that's affordable, accessible, no judgment. It's not about how many followers you have or who you know. You can just literally come in, do whatever you need to do in one space. And it doesn't matter if it's your full-time thing, part-time thing. You can work from here, then do your DJing, your photography, or you can set up shop in your photography for the day, do your studio. Like we wanted to try create a space that, you know, enables everyone to be creative.
Yeah, and it was probably really born out of like those early days
Yeah.
in
So
university and stuff.
Yeah.
everything that you
As-
did
as we
leads up
talked
to
about
it.
it.
That's
Yeah.
the thing. Every step you take, right?
Literally, yeah. This is it. Because I started DJing when I was like 14 or something. Didn't know I'd be doing something like this now. And then through the years worked in tech and all sorts of stuff. Same with Robin as well.
Yeah.
But then it all comes back to those early passions and stuff like that.
I always
cool.
say that it's interesting because I always say all the cool people I know had some type of mini crisis in their 30s and decided to quit the job that they had been doing forever and then pursue the thing that they really wanted to do.
Right.
And the people I know who have done that, they're all doing the thing that they were interested in when they were in high school or when they were a kid, and they thought that that wasn't a thing that you could do for a job.
Yeah.
For me, even, I love being a personality. I love being on camera. I love storytelling. And when I was in high school, I would do all these tech clubs. I was part of the Media Tech Society, which sounds like the coolest thing ever. But I was always interested in the stuff, but I didn't realize it was a real job or career path. So I did the safe thing. And then after, I'm like, wait, the thing that I wanted to do the whole time has always been what I wanted to do. Why don't I just give myself the permission to finally do it?
Right.
Yeah, I had the same thing. So when we were in college, we were doing the DJing thing, and from that, I was able to do I was doing a lot of gigging and really enjoying it. But then it was like, okay, college is over now. Time to get a big boy
Now we have
job.
to be real people, yeah.
But I mean, again, I still really I worked for a big consulting firm, sold my soul to the devil for a few years, but I learned a lot. And like yourself with PR, there's some skills that you've locked in the bank from doing those things. And yeah, I don't regret it. But one thing I do, just burning in the back of my head, what was it about Survivor that you were like, I want to do this. This is the thing for me?
Oh, I had watched Survivor since the very first season. So I was 11 years old when it came out.
Yeah.
And as I was watching the first season, I just knew that was the thing that I wanted to be on and win. And I would say for background, so I grew up in a multi-generational Filipino immigrant home. My grandparents lived with us. I was really close with my grandparents. And my grandpa actually passed away when I was 11. And it was the first time I knew somebody who passed away. And it was just, the grief was something I couldn't really wrap my head around. I know that my parents had a lot of responsibilities, so we relied on my grandparents a lot. And I think my parents didn't have the capacity to really be there in the way that they wanted to be, because they also had to keep the household running. And I'm trying to just really come to terms with this confusing new thing that's happening. And then this new show premieres, and it's Survivor. And you see these people on this adventure, and you see them really persevering and doing all of these crazy things. And I think that at the time I didn't realize it, but now that I'm an adult, I can look back and realize I think that show was like an escape for me and an inspiration that helped me during that time with a lot of grief. So I think that that's why when I was 11, I thought, okay, I'm going to be on that show and I'm going to win. So the show, for me, when I was a fan for all of the years leading up to being on the show, I always saw it as a source of inspiration. I would always motivate myself, and I would say, okay, one day when I'm on Survivor, I'm going to be ready because I've persevered through this moment. So I think it always like until I was on the show, it always symbolized like hope, inspiration, and resilience.
Yeah, funny actually, because I used to do a similar thing where, through my life had a lot of adversity. Dad suffered from alcoholism and my mum had like schizophrenia, but the biggest thing as well was being able to get to the front of it and then being able to tell your story and to say to people like, yeah, you can actually get through all these things and you'll be the better for it. So, I think there's, I actually feel that hits home when you're like, this is the thing that I'm going to do to then, be able to get through this.
So tell us a bit then about post Survivor then. I guess after that, was it straight into the podcasting, or what did you do straight after Survivor then?
Yeah, then it became, so actually right after I was on Survivor, I worked at Entertainment Tonight Canada for a few months.
Okay.
So I was a correspondent there, and I would interview people who were voted off of the season of Survivor after mine.
Gotcha.
And I had always wanted to do TV. When I was in high school, I was the host of the school TV show. So it was so cool to see that I was now on stage at ET Canada doing the thing. And then that's when I started to do a bit of the work that I'm doing now in terms of keynote speaking. So when I worked in communications, I used to ghostwrite speeches for other people. So now I actually got to take that skill and apply it to myself. So I started doing keynote speaking at different corporate events. I started doing social media brand deal type things. To be honest, that was kind of overwhelming because when I worked in public relations, I was used to hiring influencers and vetting influencers, but I also was someone who had a private Instagram account with like 400 followers of people who I actually knew in real life. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, there's people who are paying attention to me and want to see my journey. So I have to figure out how to do this. So I feel like that was a huge learning curve, all of a sudden becoming a content creator. And it wasn't until a year after Survivor that I actually started my podcast.
Okay.
So to give you guys some background, on my season of Survivor, even though I'm like historic winner, first Canadian to win the show,
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't get screen time on Survivor throughout the first half of the season.
What?
So I wasn't really on TV until the second half of the season. And then because of that, a lot of the viewers didn't really understand why I won.
Jeez.
So even though I was so proud of myself, when I filmed the show, I came home and I was like, oh, I know I kicked butt. I did it. When the show aired and the finale aired, people were like, why did this girl win? And then I got like so bullied online.
Jeez.
And I had studied media in school. So the whole time I'm watching the show through this lens of, one, it's weird watching yourself on TV and having no control over this
What's
character,
edited.
what's there. Yeah.
You know what's happened and everything. Yeah.
And the other is I'm looking at it from the critical media theory point of view. And I'm like, okay, why is the story being told this way? Why am I showing up on screen this way? And I had all of these thoughts and feelings about my portrayal on the show. And I recorded a podcast episode as soon as my season finished airing. And this was before I even had a podcast. I just like sat down with a friend and I just like recorded myself sharing all of my thoughts about my portrayal and what it means and the different layers to it. And then I actually couldn't release it for another year. So I just sat on this episode for a year, and it's just because of different like contractual things. I wasn't allowed to release it. So I just sat on this episode for a year, and every now and then I would go back and I would listen to it, and I'd be like, do people still want to hear this? And I'd listen to it. I'm like, no, this is important to me. Like I want to talk about this. And I would keep going back to it. And then I finally reached the point when I could release it, and I'm just like, okay, do I think people will be into it? And I'm like, there's probably one person who wants to hear what I have to say about it. So I released it, and that was in January 2023. And I think I was like overwhelmed by the positive response to it, of a lot of people being like, thank you, I wanted to hear what you have to say. But also so many people resonated with it where they've had the experience of feeling like their experience was overlooked, or people just discounted them, or what they had to say or contribute didn't matter. And it really hit home with people in ways that I didn't expect. But yeah, so that's how the show itself came to be.
It's mad.
It's funny though, when I watch those types of shows like Survivor, or even Traders, was big into Traders as well. It's always the people, honestly, that don't show up for the first. I almost feel like when they edit the show, it's kind of like, okay, well, we know that this person's going to eventually get there, so we'll just like kind of get the other characters some showtime and then cut it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I suppose that's something that I'm surprised people got be like shocked about it.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think it's like if you watch the show and you're used to the pattern of reality TV, a lot of people come to that conclusion. But I would say the majority don't, right?
Yeah.
The majority are watching it really passively. They probably have their phone out and they're actually just scrolling through TikTok as the show is playing on air. So they're just relying on what everybody is saying. So I think a lot of people who are into it and follow the genre get it. And I'd say the majority don't. But I only say that purely because of how many people would message me for the year following telling me I like shouldn't have won. So
yeah, well. Yeah. And then obviously you went and did Traders as well recently.
Yeah.
And you know, there was probably people were probably a bit apprehensive considering your history on Survivor. So
yes.
How did that go?
I was, I would say with the Traders, it was amazing because I got to be on all the billboards. I was like front, prominent on the poster, but I was on the show for like 2 minutes. I basically walked into that manor and then the Traders were like, nope. And I just had to turn around and leave like the next morning. I was out.
And when they were doing all that promo, you probably knew you were only on there for...
Yeah.
That's funny.
I know. My mom was like, they got such a deal out of having you on the show. They're like, she's like, the media value you gave them for being on all those billboards is like way longer than like what actually happened to you on the show.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's tough because it is a strategy game, I guess. So they're all like, who's the biggest threat, I guess.
But I would say for me, I say that Traders for me was a win because I got to be on all of the billboards, but I didn't stay long enough to sustain any psychological trauma. So I was like, amazing.
So that's something with, like, when I was watching Traders, like, there are people, like... So actually, here's a question, because I didn't actually watch the Canadian one, sorry. I watched the UK one, and I started the American one before I kind of got the concept. But in the UK one, it's like real individuals, right? It's kind of like random people who kind of want to either build a name for themselves or like they need the money or whatever. So I would say emotions are high. But then the American one is all reality TV people, but the emotions that they have are so high as well. Like, what level of that is like real and what level of that is like kind of just hammed up for the show?
So the season of The Traitors Canada that I did, it was half reality stars and then half, we call them civilians. So it's people who haven't been on TV before. And I was only there for like a second, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, that was fun. Like, that was cool. I like filmed it, came home. I was like, oh my God, going on a reality show where they feed you? That was awesome. Whatever. And then after, I was talking to other reality people who were on my season, and they were like, Erika, that was way harder than our original shows. Like, that was messed up.
Wow.
But the thing is, they were like, it was really stressful. It was really hard. I've never felt like that before. But they got over it really quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of people don't realize there's a recovery period that happens after reality TV because it's just such an overwhelming experience. It's playing the game, watching the show, the audience reception. I think the three of those things really it really challenges your sense of self, and it takes you a while to like kind of get through that.
Yeah.
So for a lot of people, especially if they've been on social strategy shows, it takes a little while to recover. And what was interesting is for the traders, for the people I talked to who were there for a while, they were like, it was, for example, Big Brother. They're like, it was way harder than Big Brother, but they got over the traders super quickly. And then Big Brother, like, it takes you a while to kind of get over it.
What are some of the strategies you would use to like kind of get through that? Like, how do you go through that such maximum, like, you know, thing? Like, what would you do? Or maybe, you know, in the industry, like, what is it that people do to like kind of get themselves back down to base?
Oh, you need to go to therapy. Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate. I went to therapy for years before I was on Survivor. And then during, not when I'm filming, but, you know, afterwards, as the show's airing, being in therapy. And then I still go to therapy. So I've been in therapy for years. So I'm like, but I think it requires you to figure out ways to ground yourself. So whether it's going to therapy, whether it is having a support system of friends, family, partner, whatever. Because I think that there's many challenges to it, but I think a lot of the challenges are related to your sense of self being challenged. Because this version of you that is kind of you, but kind of not, is being reflected back to you. And then all of these people are watching that version and then reacting to it and then either affirming it or affirming who you are or like attacking you for it. And you need to be able to know who you are and be firm in that in order to weather that storm.
Yeah, because who was it? I don't know. I was watching something and it's like every person views you as different to you view yourself.
Yes, yeah.
Right. So now you're getting that like 100 times over.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, how it's like you're the hero for some people and you're the villain.
Yeah.
I think the good thing about being on reality TV is it's almost like that part of my brain has now broken where I really don't care what people think about me. It's so weird. I'm like, okay, I'll go film myself in public, or I'll say this, or I'll say no to this. I'm like, I think I've just been inundated with so many people's opinions. Now I'm like, I don't know. I just don't care.
Yeah.
And would you look at comments much?
No. When I was on reality TV, like when my season of Survivor was airing, like never went on Reddit.
Okay.
Tried to really not, it's hard because it's like things just come up, but I tried to really not look. I had some family and friends who would read what people were writing about me and send me the good stuff.
Okay.
And then not tell me the bad stuff. But I really, really tried, especially like not going on Reddit. I really tried to not expose myself to that.
Redditor?
I was a creeper for a long time. So the years before I was on Survivor, I would read Survivor Reddit all the time.
Yeah.
But now not in, like, as soon as I was on the show, I was like, I'm not taking in anybody's opinion about me.
Okay, yeah, no, that's. And would you watch? Is Survivor still
it's still on,
going?
yeah.
And would you still watch it? Is it still a thing for you, or now that you've come to the other side, it's not as much?
So it's a bit different now because, as I said earlier, Survivor was huge inspiration and escape for me. And when I was on Entertainment Tonight Canada, I would watch it because it was work. So I'd watch it through a different lens. But then when that ended, I tried to tune into it and I'm like, wait, this isn't an inspirational escape. This is real life. So I only watch it here and there because it's just like it's not the same thing for me anymore.
Right.
Wow, that's probably like fundamentally a big shift.
Yeah. But I was like, you know what? At least that shift happened because I got the prize. I ended on the top. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
That would
yeah.
suck if that shift happened and I was like the first one out.
Yeah.
It's true. You won it. So that's actually you got to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, exactly. I just like now I just climb down.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you have other reality shows than you watch now then, or
Now I
sort of put
watch.
all that genre behind you?
I think if I watch reality shows now, I pick things that I would never like. There's no way I would ever do them myself. So it's like
Okay.
I'll watch like a Love Is Blind or like the Mormon Wives, just something
geez,
that's that I'm like, I know this will always be an escape for me. I'm not going to stumble into being a wife in Utah.
Have you watched that one, Robin?
I've only ever been in the background of it, but again, anything wives of everything is just
Yeah, I watched it with my wife Andrea, and it's entertaining.
Yeah. And I feel so normal when I watch it.
Yeah, I also learned I didn't know soda shops or soda cafes are like such a big thing.
Yeah.
in Utah, and I was like, wow, that's so because
It's
they
the no
obviously don't
alcohol.
drink.
Well,
no coffee.
yeah. Mormons do
Yeah,
it,
so there's like dedicated
soda
soda
cafe,
cafes.
best soda in the world. Yeah, they say.
Probably, yeah, probably. Let's check it out.
Yeah, I feel very inspired after watching them. I'm like, do I need to buy coconut cream or something to put in my Coke?
Oh, is that something that people do? Coconut
well,
cream
they
and
have all
Coca-Cola.
their orders,
Ooh,
and they go in and I want.
that sounds nice.
Yeah, this syrup, that syrup.
maybe
coconut cream.
maybe
yeah.
we'll have to pick some up for this weekend or something. To
Is
try
that
it.
your next business venture?
see.
Bringing
Soda
Mormon
shop.
soda?
Mormon
Mormon
Toronto?
sodas in the fridge?
Yeah, watch this space. Yeah.
Yeah, Mormon sodas by these guys from Ireland.
Yeah.
It's authentic.
Straight from the
A
source.
Buddhist and a
Yeah.
Protestant.
Yeah. Sounds like the start of a joke.
It does, yeah. So now you're doing public speaking.
Yes.
And what and some of the topics around those public speaking events that you're kind of doing?
Yeah, I often talk about being underestimated.
Okay.
So whether it's how to win when you're underestimated or how to have empathy for people that you normally underestimate. And I also talk about how to manage times of change and challenge. And often it comes from a part of life that people underestimate, which is just paying attention to the needs of other people. But I find that when I do these talks, often the people who come up to me after, no matter what topic I'm talking about, they come up and they're like, I've related to you in some way. I felt like the underdog in some way. And what's interesting is it's not all the same demographic of people. Like I have had, other Filipino women come up and talk to me, or I've had like 6-foot white guys being like, yeah, I related to this part of your story. So I think that anytime I speak, it tends to be something that touches the heart and touches that underdog experience.
Yeah, and I mean, there's many times in life where you feel either undervalued or an underdog, and I think, again, probably we don't want to rip all your advice from your talks, but I'm sure that you give strategies and ways to actually manage that like feeling of being undervalued or stuff like that. So yeah, I think that is super important because it's something that everyone feels.
Yeah, and I think after I was on Survivor and I was like, okay, how am I going to use this without having to be the Survivor girl and continually talk about the game so much? And even when I looked at the audience feedback and how people were messaging me, it was because everybody saw me as the underdog player, and people who were happy that I won, they were like, finally, someone like me won. And I was like, okay, that feeling is what I can now build almost like a business. I don't want to say almost, I shouldn't downplay it, but it's like my work and my business around. So my speaking, podcasting, other creative projects are all around making that person who feels like they can't win, making them feel like, no, now you're shining, now you can win.
Yeah, and what's your process when you sit down to write a speech? What does that look like for you?
Oh my gosh. It's like I feel like it's whirlwind. It's like I have pages of notes of just every little bit of any detail. So if I'm speaking for a specific company, I do so much research on that company. I have all the notes from the meeting. It's like whenever I have a meeting with a client, I interview them as if I was still working in PR to try to get all of the details. Okay. And then I think about my own experience and I just kind of put together all of these details on paper. any possible bit of information. And then I don't know, then that becomes where I stare at it a bit, and all of a sudden the pieces come together and I'm like, wait, if I talk about this part of my experience and come to this conclusion, then it solves this business problem for this company that I'm going to speak at.
Okay. And then would you write your whole speech out in full and then bullet point it and notes and stuff? Or would you, what's your process in that regard then?
I usually write the whole thing out.
The whole thing
And
out?
memorize
it?
No, I don't memorize
okay,
it.
okay.
Yeah, I usually write the whole thing out, put together slides, have notes on the slides, and then practice it. And then by the time I get up there, I know the stories that I want to tell.
Okay. And so then, like at the moment, you're like what you were talking about business value. So kind of what you're doing now is going in and trying to give, teams the, tools to go past being undervalued and to achieve more than they're able to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very interesting. Very cool. And now you also have a podcast, Happy to See Me.
Yes.
What has been kind of like, how many episodes have you done now?
As of the time of recording, on Monday, I release episode 95.
Oh, wow.
I have to figure out what to do for 100.
Wow. We'll do a party.
A party?
Party
A party at
Yeah.
Sleepless? Let's
Party
do
at
it. And it's
Sleepless.
actually close to my birthday. I think it's like my
Okay.
birthday week that the 100th episode would come
Yeah,
out.
okay.
Well, we can chat about
We can
that
chat
after.
about
Oh my
that,
gosh. Okay.
And so what's some of the things then, like for anyone that wants to get into podcasting, what are some of the things that like lessons learned, things you need to be aware of? I think there's a lot of people who feel like they have stories to tell and want to do this. And so, being somebody who's nearly at a centennial, it's...
Wow, a centennial.
Yeah. Sounds fancy when you say
Oh
it.
my God. Okay, I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
I would say it's more work than you think it is, but it's more achievable than you think it is.
Right.
Yeah. So I would say, I'm like, you can think of of course, I feel like you can Google all of the things about like this, the different assets and stuff you need. So I won't go into that, but I think about the purpose and what it is you want to achieve, like not just the episode number, but it's like, how do you want people to feel at the end of each episode? And if you have like a higher purpose for yourself creatively, make sure that the way you want people to feel connects to that. Because yes, you can Google all of the stuff about how to make show artwork, the show artwork, or how to write an episode outline, whatever. You can learn that stuff, but to consistently do a podcast, it's a bit of a slog. Honestly, it's a lot. I'll say that it's a lot of work. I put a lot of work into it every week, and you have to make sure that it feels purposeful for you, so you keep going. So just like think about what it is you want, not just the topic, but like how you want people to feel, and to keep that in mind when you go through the week to week of the, oh my God, who am I going to interview? What am I going to say? Oh my God, I have to edit this again. I have to like I have to do this again. Like you need to keep that in mind to keep going.
And you do solo podcasts as well? Or is it always interview based?
So I started doing a solo episode a month because I'm like, I need to at least give myself a bit of a break each week.
Yeah.
Because my show, yes, it's typically all interviews with different guests, and it is hard to get that many guests. I remember there was one time, so I was meeting with the folks from the Sonar Network at like last year, and I was like, oh, I'm having a hard time like getting guests, and they were like, yeah, but you've had 50 different guests. That's a really hard thing to do. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I forget when I put it into that context. That is an achievement to get there.
No, it is. It's actually, again, it's classic human behavior of we always forget like how far we've come, and then we always are looking forward instead of saying, actually, what I've done so far is pretty good. Like when Tom and I opened up Sleepless Studios, we occasionally do open houses where we invite everyone in. Studios are open, and we try and like get everyone together and kind of network, get to enjoy the space. And somebody said to us, well done, you've done it. Like, this is amazing. And both of us are like,
Done what?
Done what?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
we've got so much more to do.
Yeah. I think that's good though, right? Because you always feel like there's more. Like, I feel like when I won Survivor, people were like, okay, what's going to happen? I was like, no, that was one thing. There's still so many more things. We have to keep going.
Yeah. Like we've always looked at this first phase like a stepping stone. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you were the same with stuff you've done as well, that, we're always looking to the future as well. But yeah, you're probably right. It probably is looked also sometimes peek over the shoulder and say, "Oh yeah, we've done okay, I guess."
Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
not to get too meta, but it like goes back to the Buddhist thing of dukkha as well, where there's always that thing, no matter how much you get to where you always said you wanted to be, there's always that next thing to say there's more, that you have to, there's always this thing of wanting more, which is good and bad. There's pros and cons to it all.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, what was the concept? Because I interviewed Mitch Moffat on my show. He's a science communicator. He's on the YouTube channel ASAP Science. He was on Big Brother Canada, and he was talking about the hedonic treadmill.
Yes.
So yeah, the idea of
Part
you
of
reach this
dukkha.
high. So let's say it's being on reality TV, and then you need to reach that high again. So let's say you want to be on another reality show, and it's kind of like being on drugs, where you just need that next high and that next high. And then that's when people can get into, whether it's reality, it could be anything, but it's like that's when people get into challenges in life, right? Where you're just like always looking for the next high. So what we have to do is similar to what you're saying, get off the hedonic treadmill and also learn to just be happy where we're at and proud of where we're at right now.
Yeah, and I think, and actually, if I would vibe set Toronto to Vancouver, there is definitely in Toronto such a hustle vibe. Like I feel like the city's like very much always moving. Whereas like in Vancouver, it can actually just, you could, like when I moved over there first, I was like even shocked at like how slow people walk. There's like this West Coast just chilled out vibe, which I think has really helped me as somebody who has always been that like, gotta do the next thing, da 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 da. So that's been, really, really great. But yeah, no, I completely agree. The getting off the hedonic treadmill from time to time and taking a break is.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've heard mostly like fighters, I think actually like boxers and stuff talk about their focus since they were young starting boxing, it's always been world champion. But then a lot of them, when they get to that point, world champion, they don't know this is what they spent their whole life looking to do. There's not really much else above that. And then you see a lot of them just sort of like fall off. Like look at your Conor McGregor's, your Tyson Fury's.
To a point, Mike Tyson.
To a point, they get to that point, and then so it might be almost the opposite of the.
Well, that's probably wouldn't even be the opposite. It's probably a
point on
a symptom of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like you've done all these things, and because you haven't like really come to terms with it,
right,
you're now lost. You're kind of at sea because. So that actually brings me to a point. Like you could have gone that way, Erika.
Yeah.
You hit the pinnacle and all these things. What was it like deep down that kept? Like what was it then? Because you would hit your North Star. You would hit like if somebody said to me like everything you wanted, you've just gotten that.
Yeah.
How did you like? What were the things that kept you moving forward?
I think I just didn't want to believe that was it. I didn't want to believe that my life was just to lead up to this one achievement. I'm like, there's so much to life. Even though I love Survivor and I said that I wanted to win it since I was a kid, I didn't want to believe that was the only thing that I had to live for. Right. So I think also what helped me as I think about it when the show was airing was to help contextualize it that the show is one part of one chapter of my life, and there's still so many more other things.
right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
Somebody should have told Mike Tyson it sooner.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, so we do this last segment. Do we have the wheel?
It's to your left there. Rowan.
Okay, so we have
Oh.
a segment, right? So we do a hot take wheel.
Oh my
And
God.
The
Yeah.
concept
Surprise.
really, and my sorry, mic is not good. So the concept really is we end up talking about loads of things around like creativity or like get stuck in certain topics. So this is kind of a chance for us to like change the topic completely. And my handwriting is awful, but I will feel free to spin it and will read it.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay.
Social media killed creativity.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's not a bad one. Yeah. Has social media killed creativity?
That's a good one for me because I feel like, as I was saying earlier, that I all of a sudden had to become a content creator. I didn't have to become a content creator, but all of a sudden I'm like content creator. And I feel like, because I do look into, education and like coaching around social media. And the thing is, I feel like so much of social media is around the strategy to satisfy the algorithm and to build the audience. And then because of that, we need to hook people in certain ways, or videos need to move at a certain pace, or I don't know, there needs to be serialized content is like the big thing on social media right now. And I think it's like so many people who are making content are being told like there's kind of a way to do it in order for it to be seen. So I think that the need for the art to be seen in order for it to be successful, I think it does challenge the creativity, right? Because I think for a lot of artists, whether you are a painter or a musician or a glassblower, like the art still exists and it's still legitimate, and the message you're trying to say, it's still there regardless of people see it. But I feel like for social media, it's so much about being seen that it does challenge the creativity a little bit. And then what I think is, but then that's why I love certain moments when people break all the rules and then it gets seen. Like, what was it? The thing last year with Risa Tisa with Who the F Did I Marry? Did you see that? Oh my gosh. So it was, I just said there's all these rules about how quick videos need to be, you know, how all the
3
cuts,
seconds
whatever.
per scene and stuff like that.
And last year, so this thing went viral on the internet. It was 40, I think it was like 48, 50, I don't know. I watched all of them, all these videos. This woman would just put her phone up and just talk for 10 minutes, no hook or anything. And she was just telling this like crazy story about this guy she married.
I did see this.
And I watched the entire thing and I was like, she has literally not followed any of the rules on how to get something to perform well on social media, and has gotten people to watch this long form content where nothing happens except for her talking and we're all hooked. And it's just because she told a compelling story.
So here's a question we were discussing and something that I'm toying with. If we believe in like visualization and manifesting, so we get fed all these things because I'm constantly trying to like figure the best ways to edit all these things, and we're constantly told, but what if you kept true to yourself online and kept true to your art? Maybe eventually it'll pay off. That's
honestly what I have found has been happening like this year, which is kind of funny. So I do this series where I only buy 15 fashion items every year because I have so many clothes. So I'm like, I'm only buying 15 things and I'll just document it on social media. And I remember thinking, this is anti what it means to be an influencer, because influencing is basically based in consumerism and getting people to buy things. So I was like, okay, if I do this series and show that honestly I only buy 15 things, I've like cut off any opportunity for me to get brand deals. And I was like, you know what, whatever, I like do other things, I'm just gonna do it. And then it resonated with people. And what's funny is it's like this year I've had brands reach out to me as a result of me doing that series, because now, because of everything happening economically, consumers are, you know, there's much more challenge in terms of the money that people can spend. Consumers are not as into the influencers who are just showing off affluent lifestyles. They don't like when people are just showing, you know, boxes of free stuff that's being sent to them. So what's funny is it's like the pendulum has come around, and like this thing that I do is what's of the moment right now. So so I think weirdly it does pay off if you do the thing that feels true to you.
Yeah. Well, I guess going back to the question again, then is it fair to say social media, as well as putting pressure on creativity, can it also foster creativity?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because like, you know how I was saying, I'm like, there's all these tips on how to hook someone or whatever. Yeah. Because then it becomes the ocean of content then starts to look very uniform, right? And then there's going to be somebody out there who's willing to break the mold and do something their own way. Then that's like the new thing that sticks out. And, you know, that becomes the standard. But I think it's like, because of creativity, that's how the standards are made. So I think it does put the pressure for sure. Yeah. What do you guys think?
I would think to say, like, yeah, it's hard to say one way or the other. It's probably a bit of both. Of you got the pressure, but then you've also got people get these opportunities to share their creative side that they might not have been able to do before social media. So I would say, for myself, I would see it sort of somewhere in the middle. It helps. Get off that fence, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to sit firmly on the fence too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I do think to an extent it has put a lot of pressure on artists and creators, whatever you're doing, right? Whether it's music, whether it's film, whether it's suddenly you're a painter and now your paintings don't cut it anymore because people want videos. So that can put a lot of pressure and hamper down if you're focusing on making content, maybe not focusing so much on doing your painting. So yes, there are probably pros and cons, but at the same time, there are people making, we say content, but some people are making genuine works of art that take time and effort for somebody to see. And just because we flick through it in 30 seconds doesn't mean it's not worth anything. So yeah, I do think that there will be a reckoning at some point around, the music industry particularly.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm going to lean on it's helping creativity in somewhat.
And I guess it's also, I know I was talking about things being seen. It is also making everything visible. So that might be also why I might think that like, oh, there's a lot of stuff that's the same and there's some stuff that's super creative. But it's just that it's because we're seeing all of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like many people can paint, but not everybody is Picasso.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make like painting less of a creative medium. But it's the only thing is like, unless it's Picasso, we're probably not seeing everybody's paintings.
Yeah.
So it might just be I'm just like seeing everybody's content that looks kind of the same.
Yeah. Well, that's the algorithm as well.
This is a
Well, anyway, thank you so much, Erika, for
Thank you.
for the
thanks for
time
coming,
today. And so Erika also films her podcast here in Sleepless Studios. Happy to see me.
I do, yes.
And for anyone else wanting to come into Sleepless Studios, we offer 3 hours for the price of 2 via the Sleepless Studios app. So feel free to download Sleepless Studios and avail of our fabulous facilities here.
Yeah, and if you haven't listened to Erika's podcast, Happy to See Me, by the helped out by the Sonar Network. Make sure you check it out on all platforms.
Yeah.
But that's great. Yeah. So another episode done. Until next time. Peace.
Stay sleepless.